The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let's try that. All right. Hello?
I'm telling you right now, tonight is, we're off to a blistering start here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I know you're just getting the audio here. I do apologize. Oh, you know, the frustration finally hit me tonight on the show. And what do you do? What do you do? It's been a long week as we put this together. We welcome you to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Now, Jim Thomas was supposed to join us tonight to talk all about experiences. However, a good friend of his of more than 50 years passed away. So we had to change on the fly. This is like a good old-fashioned hockey game here. We're changing on the fly. Olav Phillips is joining us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Olav is the editor of Paranoia magazine, and we're going to have a great show with Olav. Because the last time he was on, Carl made an appearance, which was filled with that clicking conversation between whatever it was communicating in my backyard and up my driveway. So we're going to try and manifest Carl again tonight. We're going to ask for your help on doing that. Olav is most known for his work with Paranoia magazine and online publication of The Strange and Weird. Also, he's been known to be one of the top and most up-to-date researchers in the Secret Space program. What's it all about? We'll get into that as well. Then, in the bottom of the third hour, Everett Themer is going to join us and discuss the day's strange and alternative news with The Encounter. Olav Phillips, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I tell you, we're having some technical snafus here, but that's okay. That's okay. By tomorrow, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be great.
Hey, one day at a time, man. One day at a time.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, it's true. You know, especially, you know, when you get into the 14 and the weird and the bizarre, you know, you learn to accept that the things happen one day at a time.
Right. Right. You know what? When you're putting a project this big together and you are, you know, trying to meld everything, and literally you have a set time of when you can do that, it is so much more difficult than what we almost all expect. And, you know, the glitches are going to come and go. It's going to take a couple of weeks before we're fully comfortable in our brand new home here. But nonetheless, you know, the show must go on. You know, this can't be a pity party, you know, a woe is me, where we are like other shows where we just say, well, that's it. I'm having a bad day. We're going to cancel the show. We don't do that. We don't do that here. You know, we got to man up. We got to, you know, put the Brute 33 on, musk ourselves up, and, you know, put a little Brill cream in the hair and get things going. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, and that's what we are doing. So we're going through this, and we're going to make a good show out of it. What have you been up to, my friend? What have you been up to? What kind of strange and weird has Olav Phillips been up to?
You know, more recently, I've been, obviously, I always poke around in the Secret Space program, and I watch for things, and I try to make note of things, and you know, to me, there's a larger program at work, so I try to understand and think and watch and listen to, you know, to the news of what's going on, to see how it fits into the bigger program. And I definitely think there are things afoot that are happening every day that just, you know, compound upon themselves to make me believe that we're heading in that direction. But I've also, over the last, I'd say, year, I've always been a fan of, like, Lemuria and mysterious places, roadside attractions. I have a deep and unabiding love of kitsch. So I've been trying to go out and to venture out into the darkness and find some of these weird places and, you know, write about it and just experience it. And, you know, it could be a roadside attraction or it could be a mysterious place. You know, I've been to all kinds of different stuff, but I've been going down that path. And I've been investing more time in the whole Lemuria thing because I have a deep and unabiding interest in the notion of Lemuria and forgotten islands and all that kind of crap. But I've been kind of investing in that as of late.
You know what? It's such an untapped type of phenomena that is going on. You know, we always seem to be so invested in ghosts, in UFOs, in Bigfoot, that we forget about these really strange places where strange occurrences happen, whether it's the Bridgewater Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, the Alaskan Triangle, the Great Canadian Triangle. I'm just making that one up because I'm feeling a little left
No, there's
out.
a Canadian triangle.
Is there a Canadian triangle? What? No.
We'll
What
invent
does
one
that include? A couple of Eskimos and a moose?
It's the Canadian Arctic.
Yes.
Things don't come out.
Well, up in the now the territory is escaping me, but in the Equality Northwest Territory area, there was an indigenous community that actually disappeared a number of years ago.
Oh yeah, no, they're actually it's no joke that when you get into the Northwest Territories and the Yukon Territories, basically the territories, right? When you get away from British Columbia and Manitoba, and the others, when you head up north, there are multiple entire indigenous communities that just have vanished off the face of the earth. There's actually a problem with the indigenous people up there where they have a lot of disappearances. And I mean, it's not things that you can chalk up to kidnapping or murder. I mean, people just are like walking down the street and disappear. It happens a lot actually up there. It is a very, very weird place. I mean, I've been there. I told you, I've been everywhere, man. I've been to the Yukon, and it is a strange place. I loved it, but it is a weird place.
Mrs. Spaced Out Radio is from the Yukon, and that's what makes her a little bit weird and strange in herself there. I mean, when you got that, like right now, they'll be having like 22 hours of sunshine a day. And if you think I'm exaggerating over that, listeners, Google it. 22 hours of sunshine a day.
I went out. I went to Whitehorse, which is the capital of the Yukon Territory, and we were up there during the summer. And I went outside because I was curious. I went outside at like 3 a.m, and it was like down here because I'm in the low latitudes, right? Down here, it would be like sunset. It would be that kind of hour when the sun is setting and it's not dark, but it's not light. But that was about as dark as it got. Even with blackout shades, your room was still lit up. It's enough to make you go bonkers. But it's amazing to see.
Now, Olav, the last time we had you on, we had something strange happen. It was about 11:35 p.m. Pacific time, when all of a sudden I had the energetic feeling that Carl was back. You remember that?
Sure. I remember it vividly. You became agitated, not in an angry way, but an agitated, like an uneasy agitated. And you kept stopping the interview going, there's something here, there's something here. And after the show, you went out looking for it. And I was on the phone with you while you were like going down your driveway, and you could see him. If I remember, you could see him in the distance moving.
Yeah, I could totally see things moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could hear him, and yeah, it was pretty insane.
That was an intense night. I remember being on the phone with you because I had both of my vehicles parked on the lower part of my driveway. I've got a 2-tiered driveway, and my yard, I have just over half an acre of a yard. All right, and my driveway kind of goes to the halfway point. All right, and it's 2-tiered because my yard slopes down into a green belt. Not a big slope, but it just kind of gradually makes its way down. So I have a 2-tiered driveway, and my carport is on that lower tier. So we had the Mrs. vehicle and my vehicle parked side by side, and if you remember, when I went outside, all puckered up tighter than anything.
Oh, yeah.
I remember telling you that there was those it almost looked like a yin and yang or a Nike swoosh, two Nike swooshes, one on top of the other, but reversed, going in between my vehicles. And we watched it. And I watched it go, from the rear end of the vehicles to the front of the vehicles. And then as I walked closer to it, it went back the other way. Because remember, I had you on the phone where I was literally like, Olav, I am going to poo my pants if I walk around these vehicles and Carl is hanging out there.
Well, I got to tell you, in my life, and I don't know why, I've never understood why, but, because everybody wants to argue about the why. Is it because you're open-minded or you're interested or, you can call it whatever you want. But for whatever reason in my life, I'm a lightning rod for that stuff. I've seen many UFOs. I've had experiences. I've seen Bigfoot. I've interacted with ghosts, good ghosts, bad ghosts. I've seen ghosts. I've seen crazy stuff in ghosts. I've felt the mojo in places. I call it the mojo, but the feeling, that kind of electricity, like an electrostaticness to a place. But I don't know why, but a lot of times, like, if I'm on a radio show, right, and the person who's running the radio show is kind of, has had experiences or whatever, then something will happen. I don't know why, but what happened with you and Carl has happened to me before. I'm like a lightning rod. I really don't get it.
You know what? And I'm going to blame you for that because it just seems more fun to blame you than me. But one of the things I am going to quickly do here, if you don't mind, my friend, is we have a number of new listeners since you last came who are wondering, who the hell is this Carl guy? So I'm just going to give a quick synopsis for our newer listeners what this is about, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
All right. So back on April 20th, 2015, when I was broadcasting out of my old home and the original SOR headquarters back in Mission, British Columbia, I turned a bedroom in the upstairs of my house into a studio, which happened to be right beside my front door. And we always had one of those houses where, if somebody popped over for coffee at like 10 o'clock at night, that wasn't something that was unexpected. So it was about 10:17. I am interviewing a gentleman named Harvey Kraft about Buddha, of all topics. And I see something out of the corner of my eye move out the window. And I'm thinking, geez, man, one of my friends is coming over. They're going to come to the front door. They're going to knock or ring the doorbell. The dogs are going to go crazy. This is not good radio. Not good radio at all. And then there was no knock. And for some reason, that was the third night in a row that I had forgotten to turn my outdoor lights on. So when Harvey started speaking, I turned in my swiveled office chair to look out the window to see who was outside or who had pulled into my driveway, because I lived in a subdivision. And lo and behold, in the corner of my window, there were two black eyes with a big gray head looking back at me. And it scared me. So I nicknamed him Carl, because that's what I like to do. Nicknamed him Carl after all that time. Kind of freaked me out. I'm not going to lie. I did get a little freaked out by it. But nonetheless, Carl has become our mascot of this show. Why did I name him Carl? Why not? I didn't know what else to call him. He needed a name. So that's what we did. We named him Carl. And when Olav was last on the show, if you're an experiencer, I'm going to explain it this way. If you're an experiencer, all right, you pick up the energies. And Olav, I'm sure you'll agree, you have experienced a lot. You'll agree with me when I say this, that whether it's Bigfoot or ghosts or UFOs or aliens, they all have their own energetic pattern that somehow you, as a person, react to.
Yeah, you feel it.
Exactly.
You absolutely feel it.
Exactly. And so when Olav was on the show, I think it was October or early November last year, because I know it wasn't in shorts.
I was in shorts, but
Yeah, I wasn't. It was starting to get cold up here, starting to.
Yeah.
And I remember all of a sudden looking out the window because I recognized Carl's energy. And that feeling that I had when I saw him. So immediately I decided to figure out what was going on. And that's how you and I got started on this topic.
Well, did I ever tell you about the first UFO I ever saw?
No, fill me in.
So I was about 9, and it was the 80s, right? I'm an old dude now, but it was the 80s, and I mid 80s, and I was reading a Choose Your Own Adventure, which was very, very popular back then, and I was reading this thing, and I was in my bed, and of course it was past my bedtime, you know, and I've got the lights on, and my parents were like, "Well, you're reading. I don't really want to stop you. You know, it's kind of pulpy, but whatever." So I'm reading, and I'm laying in bed, and I still remember it as clear as a bell. And I looked up from the book for some reason. I don't know. There was like a feeling, the feeling you were talking about, like a weird feeling, and there was like a static in the air. And I looked out the window. Now, my parents have a condo, and they still have it. And every time I go in that room, I swear to God, I see this light. Anyway, so they have a condo, and the condos have flat roofs. And outside my window, the window was about, I don't know, 3 inches above the first tier of the flat roof. And there was an air conditioning condenser about 2 feet or 3 feet from my window. Great view. And then you go out about 8 feet or so, and then it dropped down to where the garage was, and then there was another flat roof, right? And so I look up, and there's this white light that had to be about 4 feet in diameter that's just in front of my window. It's just hanging there. And it was a bluish white light, and it was bright, but it wasn't bright in a way that it blinded you. It was just bright in a way that it illuminated my room. And so, you know, I'm 9 years old, and I'm scared. I'm like, what is that? And my family has a long record of being in the Air Force, so I grew up around planes, and I'm like, I don't know what plane's going to be sitting, 6 inches from my window. But I figured I did what a kid does. I went back to reading. I said, you know what, I'm going to read this thing away. So I kept reading, and I looked up, and it's still there. And then I got under my blanket. My family, we always had down comforters. Always just had them. And so I pulled a comforter over my head, and I'm like, okay, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And I pull the comforter back, and it's still there. And one thing that you can probably attest to is that when you have a paranormal experience, or an atypical experience, maybe it's not paranormal, but it's abnormal, not normal. Time slows. Time, you're like in a temporal bubble. The time doesn't pass the same way you think it does. That it could be like 60 seconds, but to you it's like 4 hours long. And so I get under the blanket again. Nope, still there. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's coming for me. I had watched In Search Of in the late 70s and the early 80s, but I really didn't I was like 6 years old. 7 years old. I remember it, but I didn't really absorb it. And back in the early to mid 80s, it wasn't really a time of a lot of UFO stuff. That it wasn't like it is now where you're bombarded with it. So I really wasn't thinking what it was. I just knew that it was weird, and it was scaring the crap out of me. And so I hatched this plan that I was going to get up and run for my door. My door was probably, 4 feet or so from where my bed was. And if I can make it to the door, I can make it across the hallway, which was only 3 feet. And then my parents' room was on the other side. And so I bolt to the door, I slam the door open, and I got through the hallway, and I got to my parents' room, and I opened the door, and I swung it open. And my dad's a combat veteran, so he fought in Vietnam. And so he was in the military for a very long time. And so he's not a light sleeper, but he's a deliberate sleeper. So if something happens, he's awake. He's not groggy. I mean, he's like wide awake. So I throw the door open, and my dad's awake. And I'm like, Dad. He goes, what's wrong? I said, Dad, there's something in my room. And I don't know what it is. And I said, you were in the Air Force. He goes, yes, I was in the Air Force. I said, Grandpa was in the Air Force. Yeah, Grandpa was in the Air Force. I said, you know a lot about planes? He goes, yeah, pretty much. He wasn't a pilot, but, you're exposed to it. And I said, you have to tell me what this thing is. I have no idea. And it's scaring me really bad. And so he had a military issue baton, like a police baton, that he kept under his bed. And so he pulls that thing out and he says, get behind me. And he goes through the door, gets into my room, and it's gone. And he's like, okay, well, it's gone. And he did the dad thing to do. It's gone. It's not coming back. You're safe. I'm here. That kind of thing. And I said, you believe me, right? He goes, oh, I believe you. And so he got me into bed. He sat with me, got me calmed down, and I fell asleep. The next day, my elementary school, it was library day. And so I go to the library, and I go to the librarian. And remember, I'm only like 9. I go to the librarian, and I say, because, when you're in elementary school, right, the librarian is a kind of, they're kind of like a guide to books, not so much like, tell me where this thing is. It's more like, I like Camaros, or, I like cars. Okay, well, what kind of cars you like? I like red cars. Okay, what kind of red car do you like? I like Camaros. And they're like, okay, go over here. So I go to the librarian and I say, hey, I saw something weird. This is terrible. I saw something weird outside my bedroom window, and I want to understand what it was. Okay? So she says, oh, okay, go to Dewey Decimal System, blah, blah, blah. So I go there, and it's books about planes. And I know about planes. I mean, I grew up on an Air Force base. I go back, and we had F-111s buzzing our house all the time. I go back, and I told her, I said, no, I'm not looking for airplanes. I'm looking for something else. This was not an airplane, right? And so she goes, oh. And this time, instead of giving me the Dewey Decimal number, she says, and I still remember where it was, she said, go into the other room, go to the bookshelf on the far left, on the bottom, on the right side, there are books there. Okay, so I go, and it's like Messengers of Deception by Jacques Vallée, the UFO, I forget the name of it, but the one by Hynek, and then Mysteries of Time and Space by Brad Steiger. And so I pick up all 3, and I'm like, I want them. And so I check them out. I could not get through Hynek. It was just too dense. It was too difficult for a 9-year-old to digest. I liked Vallée, Messengers of Deception, but it was too confusing because Vallée gets into a lot of different things about, what is a man in black, for example, or what it was, 2,000 years ago, how would they have interpreted an alien? And it's fascinating to read, but not at 9. And so I was able to read Brad Steiger's book, and I read it cover to cover. And I actually told, God rest his soul, I told Brad Steiger this, Brother Brad, and he was, very happy that pretty much the first paranormal book I ever read was his. But, I told him, I said, I read it cover to cover, and I loved it. And it just blew my mind. Like every page, vortexes and time loops and all this stuff. And it just completely blew my mind. And he says, well, did it answer the question? I said, hell no. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell that thing was. And I'm a 43-year-old man, and I went to my dad about 6 months ago, and I said, hey, Dad, remember that time when I ran into your room? He goes, of course. And I said, do you believe me? He goes, oh, I totally believe you. He said, I don't know what you saw, but it scared the crap out of you, and I totally believe you saw that. I have no doubt in my mind to this day. And he's 74 years old, you know. But that actually was the first UFO sighting I ever had. And then probably about 2 years later, when I was about 11 or 12, again, it still would have been in the 80s, but more toward the later end of the 80s, I was walking my dog. And this is what I mean about being a lightning rod, right? I was walking my dog with my mom, and we lived on a circle, and we were coming up, there's kind of an incline, and we were coming up the incline, and there, on the opposite side of the street, there was like a break in the trees, and I looked up, and I swear to you, it was the Lazar Sportster model, or the Trent UFO from the 60s, hanging about 30,000 feet, just hanging there. I could even see the wave guide. I mean, it just hung there. And I'm standing in the middle of the street staring at it. My mom's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, Mom, there's a weird plane up there. And my mom looks, and of course it's gone. That's in the middle of suburbia.
Isn't it amazing, though, that no matter what our age is, Olav, that we still want our parents' acceptance to what we are seeing? I remember a couple years ago, before I started it was about 8-10 months after I started the radio show. And my dad had come over to see our little guy. And I just kind of sat with him. I said, Dad, I need to talk with you. And my dad was a real five senses guy. Like when I told him that I had seen Bigfoot a year previous, he was like, no, you didn't. Well, Dad, I did. No, that's BS. No, don't waste my time. And I said, Dad, why would I waste my time telling you that I did if I didn't? And it pissed me off, right? Well, all of a sudden I sat him down and I said, Dad, I got to tell you, about the radio show, because he had learned that I was doing a radio show. I didn't tell him what the topics were, so I figured, well, it's time to give old Dad the story. And I'll tell you, after about 45 minutes of discussing it with him, for him to sit back and say, I believe you, it was some of the most, it was like 2 tons of weight.
It makes you cry.
Yeah, like 2 tons of weight was just lifted off my shoulders.
My dad's a very pragmatic guy. He extremely pragmatic, five senses, as you put it, kind of guy. And he doesn't really put a lot of faith in that kind of thing, like UFOs and Bigfoot or whatever. But the one thing that he does do that I think is actually somewhat unique is that he'll take if you tell him that you saw a UFO, he'll take it at face value. He'll say, I believe you, and he will. He just has never seen it, so he doesn't, as a concept, he doesn't buy into it. But he'll believe that you had an experience and what you're relaying to him is accurate. And to illustrate the point, one day he was sitting in my living room, right, with my mom. And, it was my grandmother had passed away a little while before. And, he was...
We just lost Olav. We just lost him. Oh, my God. Tinfoil! Tinfoil! Make it happen. Let's quickly get to the Olav here. Hold on. I was wondering, because we were his signal was getting a little crackly there. I wonder where he went. Well, he must be trying to call back, because we definitely didn't get him on that one. We're going to try and ring him again. Dun, dun, dun. See, this is what happens when I rip off the bandana on Bandana Wednesday. My frustration made me rip off the bandana. And I ripped it off. And now I can't hear a thing. I wonder if his phone died. Seriously. I've rang him twice now. Cannot get a hold of him. Cannot get a hold of him. We're going to keep trying here. Let's try number 3. Let's try number 3. Where's the count from Sesame Street when you did 1 phone call ringing, 2 phone call ringing. Let's go for number 3. Here we go. See if this time it'll work. Oh, there he is. There he is. Hold on, Olav, because it's calling on my end. We know. I know, but it's going to make me want to leave a message for you. How do I end this? Let's see here. Hey, Olav, if you get me, I know you're on the phone right now, Olav, with me, but some reason it went on to your voicemail. Olav, when you get this call, maybe give us a call back because the tinfoil's a little tight right about now. Little tight, nonetheless. How you doing, buddy? What happened there?
Hey, can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. Me. So before I finish the story, this actually happens to me.
If you're
when
satisfied
I talk about
with the message,
UFOs
press
and
1.
paranormal
To listen
stuff,
to your message,
my
press 2.
phone will die.
To erase and re-record, press
1
3.
second,
To continue
Hold on.
recording where you
Hold
left
on.
off,
Can you hear me?
press 4.
For some reason, Skype is being a poo-poo right now. Let me try.
If you're satisfied with the message,
I'm not
press
satisfied,
1.
damn
To
it.
listen to your message, press 2. To
you hear
erase
me?
and re-record,
Yeah, I can
press
hear you,
3.
Olav.
To continue recording where you left off,
It's hooked up
press
on 2
4.
calls right now. I got to figure out how to end that call. Let's just hit 4.
It'll time out.
See
If
what
you're
happens.
satisfied with the message, press 1. To listen to your message,
okay,
press
I'm
2.
satisfied with
To
the
erase
message.
and re-record, press 3.
We're
To
having
continue
fun here.
recording where
This
you
is
left
just
off,
a train wreck
press
right
4.
now, and I'm loving it. Olav, why does the weird stuff always happen when you're on the air with us? Let's just be
I
Sorry
honest.
don't
you're
know.
having trouble. Your message has been sent.
I told
Please
you,
try
man.
again later.
I don't know.
Goodbye.
My
There, it hung
phone
up.
actually died. My phone died. My SIM card failed.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I tell you, when I'm on, especially with you, or if I'm on ground zero, those are the two. Whenever I'm on with you or Clyde, it always craps out on me, and I have phone problems and all kinds of weird things. Anyway, so my dad is missing my grandma, right? And so he's sitting in a chair in my living room, and he's staring at the couch. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the couch, and there's nothing there, right?
Right?
Yeah, and I'm like, what is it, Dad? And he goes, it's nothing. And so about an hour later, they were playing with the kids and hanging out. And about an hour later, I said, Dad, what happened? He goes, well, you know how I told you I was missing Grandma, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, Grandma appeared on your couch. And I'm like, okay. And because I have no doubt that it's true. And I said, well, was she a full body apparition, or did you just see her head, or her arm, or what? I've seen all of those things by themselves, which is incredibly creepy. Seen an arm manifest in midair, that's enough to make you hit the bathroom. Anyway, so I'm like, well, what did you see? He goes, no, she was there. It was her, complete, like she was alive. And she looked at me and smiled. I'm like, okay, well, was she young or was she old? He said, no, she was old, just like she would be if she was alive today. I said, well, I'll be damned. You saw a full-body apparition. That is a very rare thing. My dad goes, no, I didn't. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you saw a ghost, Dad. He goes, son, I don't know what I saw, but I'm just going to leave it at that. I said, well, don't you believe in ghosts now? He goes, no. I said, well, how can you not believe in ghosts? You just saw one. He goes, I don't know what I saw. I saw your grandmother, and I'm just going to take it at face value that I saw your grandmother. That does not mean that I believe in all ghosts. And I'm like, okay, Dad. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's hilarious, man. That is absolutely hilarious. I mean, I love it when people, and I'm staring at one right now, who have experiences but are in total denial that it's actually happening.
Yeah, I hear you. And I understand he's a very pragmatic person, and I understand what he's saying. He's saying that he was basically, in his way, he was saying, I don't understand what I saw, so I can't classify it. So for me, because I can't classify it, I'm just going to say your grandmother was sitting there, but until I can classify it, I'm not going to label it. That's kind of how he is. So I get it. But again, it's in my house, and I'm standing there. It's like this stuff always happens to me. I never understood it, ever. I really haven't. It's weird.
The weird and strangeness that kind of goes through everything, my friend. I mean, It's odd. It's odder than Axl Rose actually being sober and making a Guns N' Roses decision, on reuniting. I mean, that's how weird it is.
Or an AC/DC decision, apparently.
Oh, I'm a fan of that. I don't slam Axl too much. He is my music god, besides Bumblefoot.
And I'll tell you something, if you see him singing these, because he's the lead singer of AC/DC now, if you see him sing AC/DC, he does a damn good job.
Oh, yes, he does. That's why he's the greatest ever, with the greatest song. I know I'm going to get some eye rolling here, and people are going to say, that, Anonymous Scurry or other people like that. But nonetheless, it's strange. And I love it when people have these experiences. Like even with my ghost tour that I do, we did a ghost tour probably 2 or 3 ago, where we had this guy and, he's the cross the arms across the chest kind of guy, that guy. And sure. every tour has that guy in there where literally they have no clue on any of this because they don't believe it. And he even told me, I don't feel anything. I don't sense anything. Nothing's going on here for me. And we got this one ghost that we call the Blue Man who likes to put what feels like cobwebs on people's faces. And so I said to the Blue Man during that time, I said, come on, get the skeptic, make us laugh. Nothing happened. And then as we were leaving the building to go over to the next building for the tour, all of a sudden you hear this guy, and he starts rubbing his face. He goes, damn it, I just got cobwebbed. Oh, to have that moment of pointing my finger and laughing at him. It was so much fun, man. I love when that happens. Love it.
I'll tell you one thing, though, and I've come to believe this over time, is that, when I was young, like all young people, I told myself, because, I moved here in 1980, and I promised myself that I'd leave, right? I had a whole plan. I'm going to get out of here. I actually have an aversion to suburbia. I don't want to be here. I want to be in the trees and surrounded by Bigfoot and all that. And here I am. I still live here. But I was pulled back to it. And for a lot of reasons, synchronicities and other things, I ended up coming back here. And it's not because I've always lived here my whole life. I lived in England. I lived in multiple towns away from here that are semi-close to here, within a half an hour. But for some reason, I ended up back here. And for a long time, I've lived where I live now for about 11 years. And for a long time, I tried to understand why. And then it dawned on me one day. I live in a valley, and the predominant feature of this valley is a mountain. It's pretty tall, and it's called Mount Diablo, the mountain of the devil. And it has a tremendous history, right? But what I came to realize is that this whole valley that I live in is electrified, that there is so much stuff in this valley. And, you can look around and you can say, well, San Francisco. That's great. But in reality, per capita, there's a higher concentration of weird stuff here than there is in San Francisco. And there's UFO sightings. One of J. Allen Hynek's 10% that he couldn't explain happened here. They dug up, and we can talk about this later, but they dug up a giant here that was well documented, lost by the Smithsonian, the whole 9 yards here. All these lost treasures and demonic entities, vortexes, CIA programs, it's all here. And it just got sucked back into it. I mean, I've had more UFO sightings in the middle of suburbia than I had going to places where they're supposed to be, highly active. And I mean, we're talking like, daytime UFO sightings, clear, yeah. So I got sucked back here. But I think I was pulled back here.
It's funny, though, because like in my community where I live here in the middle of nowhere, the kids here, literally cannot wait to get out of town. This place is apparently so boring for them that they can't wait. Yet, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years, 20, 30 years, they always seem to migrate back. You know, it's almost like an Amish community around here, you know, where they let the kids go. But it's home.
You know what it is here? What's the thing about this place is that it's suburbia. I mean, it's about as suburbia as you can get, right? And what happens is that when you're a kid, and all my friends were guilty of this, as was I, you know, you tell yourself, well, in my case, I wanted to live in the woods. But most of the people which is on one end of the spectrum, most of the people I knew, they wanted to live in New York or Boston, Chicago, some sort of big city. They had an obsession with going to a big city, you know, living this urban city life because, you know, this is suburbia, right? So, you know, they all had this obsession with that, but they're pretty much all came back. It's true. But I think in the case of this valley that I live in, it's electrified. I mean, there's just so much stuff here. I mean, you don't even have to try hard, and you can find lost treasures, you know, mysterious events, hauntings. In the town I live in, at the end of the main street, there's a charging station in California, right? There's a charging station for electric cars. And apparently once upon a time back in the 1800s, there was a hanging tree there. And the charging station, apparently, from what I've been told, uses about 3 times as much energy as any of the other charging stations in the entire area, like the whole county. This one charging, or there's 2 pods. These 2 pods use about 3 times as much power. You know, and it's like that much. And when you stand where the tree was, you can feel it. The despair, the fear, you can feel it. Just standing, the tree's gone, but you just standing where it was, you can feel it. You know, that's why it's like places, mysterious places are, they're electrical, you know, and it's like a vacuum cleaner. It just pulls you toward it. It's strange. It has a weird kind of gravity. It's weird.
There's a lot of strange that is happening all around, and every province, every state seems to have their areas that really stand out, whether it's a gravity hill, whether it's strange occurrences up in the mountains.
A gravity hill. We have a gravity hill. We have no less than apparently 3 gateways to hell.
Nice.
We have like 4 lost treasures. There's a spectral police car that goes on the far side. I'm looking at the mountain. On the other side of the mountain from me, I'm looking at it right now. On the other side of the mountain from me, there's this like windy road, and there's a spectral police car, good old classic, you know, Capri classic 1977 looking police car.
Yeah.
That chases down, you know, people who are drunk. And it's happened many, many times, and they'll report the police car stops them, then we'll drive past them. And as the police car is driving past them, they can see there's nobody driving it. And apparently it's so frightening that it actually snaps them into sobriety. It's very weird.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that freaks me out. Have you ever seen a ghost car? And I'm not saying the police version, but an actual ghost car?
I believe I saw one once. I believe I saw one when I was in England. They have those very distinctive cabs.
Yes.
I was standing on the high street, which in England is the main street, and I saw out of the corner of my eye one of those cabs coming. And about the time it should have passed me, I could see it clearly in my peripheral vision, right? About the time it should have passed me, there was nothing there. So I saw it in my peripheral vision. Yeah, it's frightening.
Well, I saw one once, and I'll tell you, it was a dark night on the Highway 1 between Chilliwack, British Columbia, and Abbotsford, British Columbia, which is my hometown. And the car had no lights on, and it was going up towards a bridge that crossed what we call the Vetter Canal. And this vehicle is probably 300 yards ahead of me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to catch up to this guy. I'll, give him the high beams or shut my lights on and off to give him the signal to turn his lights on. So I sped up. And as I'm coming up the hill to this bridge that is maybe 100 yards long, this guy takes off over the bridge. And then there's this long banking left turn that there is no street lights, there is no nothing. The lanes from the eastbound traffic comparatively to the westbound traffic, you got about 2 football fields in between them at that point. And so I topped the bridge. I should have seen this guy. I watched him go off the bridge and kind of into the valley to go into that turn, and he was gone. Never turned his lights on at all. That was a strange experience, man. Very strange experience.
Well, when I lived in England, there's something interesting I want to tell you about this area, but that just popped into my head. But when I was living in England, not far from where I lived, there was a place called Edge Hill, and at the base of Edge Hill was a MOD munitions dump. Highly guarded, guys with automatic weapons, whatever. But then there was this large sloping hill, and at the top of the hill was a weird kind of fortification. It was like a tower with a building attached to it, and it was all very old. We're talking like 17th century, kind of construction. And it had been a watchtower at the time. Well, during one of the many wars that they had in England, there was a battle that took place on Edge Hill, and an army came down the hill and an army came up the hill, and it was just a bloodbath. And it was one of the worst battles that they had in that war. And supposedly, I've never witnessed this, but supposedly on the anniversary of that battle, if you go there, they have the two spectral armies will fight on this hill. And it's very well known. People will actually hang out there waiting for it to happen. It doesn't always happen the way paranormal things are, but people go there specifically to watch this take place because it's supposedly these two massive spectral armies of thousands and thousands of people fighting. You can hear them fighting and screaming and dying, and you can watch it even at a distance on this hill. And I'll tell you, I went to the fortress on the top because, of course, it's a pub now, and they serve food, and so we were eating on the top of the hill, and it just, again, it had a weird electricity, it had a weird feeling, and I don't know how to describe it, but you knew something had gone wrong there. But here, there's actually an interesting thing. And remember, I was talking about lost and mysterious places. So there was a mythical group of people called the Toffa de Danann, and they are what are now referred to as fairy folk. But a long time ago, supposedly they were full sized, right? And they had the treasures of the Toffa, the treasures of the Dagda, which was the cauldron, the rock, the spear, and the sword, right? And so I've come to believe over time, I've had a lot of conversations with my friend Walter Bosley about this, and I've come to believe that the Toffa de Danann, when they inhabited more than just the part of Ireland that we think they have inhabited, right? I think they actually were the source of these mysterious islands, whether it's Atlantis or Lemuria or Thule or High Brazil or whatever. I think that was actually where they lived. And because I think there were four, because of each one had a different treasure. And I believe that the Toffa de Danann came here from Lemuria and actually settled this area because we have the four treasures. We have the rock, which is the mountain. We have the cauldron, which is the bay, and then there's a spear point out by Drake's Bay, and then the peninsula of San Francisco would form the hilt of a sword. And it's interesting because I think that they came here from Lemuria when it sank. That's why I think it's so weird here. The whole Bay Area is weird, but I think it's because they actually ascribe some sort of metaphysical value to this place. And I mean, there's more to it if you're interested, but I think that this is one of those mystical, weird places because they came here, and it ties into Shasta and the Native Americans. And we have a mysterious rock wall that runs over 50 miles that's like interconnected, and then it goes about 50 or 60 miles north. And, nobody can explain where it came from. They call it the East Bay Wall. So I think that all that ties together. And I think that's why this place is a lightning rod. And I think I've spent enough time here that it made me a lightning rod. That's where I think the source is.
Olav, I'm going to get you to hold on here because literally I could ask you another question, but in about 22 seconds we're going to go to a break, and I don't really want to cut you off there because that wouldn't sound too darn good, if you know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, we are going to go to a break here on Spaced Out Radio. I think it's going to, let us cleanse our soul and cleanse our need for more of this weird and strange. Olav Phillips is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. You can check out his website, paranoiamagazine.com. paranoiamagazine.com. And I highly suggest you do, because Olav's one of those guys that just gets stuff done on there. So go check it out during the break. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Tess Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. at spacedoutradio.com. The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter the Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thanks for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, the legendary Stanton Friedman joins us to talk UFOs and retirement from the research community. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe FM. And don't forget, you can check out our archives for free. Yes, free. Go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. That's youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate that. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Dasyphilis. Dasyphilis is the password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Olav Phillips is with us tonight. I know we were supposed to have Jim Thomas on, but Jim had to cancel. A good friend of his for well over 50 years passed away, and he's just a little heartbroken right now, so we're going to give him time off. We're going to get him back probably in July. But stepping up to the plate tonight and cranking out a home run is Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine. It's paranoiamagazine.com. If you want to check out the website, Olav, welcome back.
Hey.
We're talking strange places tonight with you, my friend. Strange places.
Yeah.
Robin has a question for you. Have you ever heard of Toad Road?
Toad Road.
Yeah.
No, I've Toad Hollow. It's like a roadside attraction, but I've never heard of Toad Road.
Well, apparently some weird stuff happens along this. They made a movie out of it. It's in Pennsylvania. And apparently it's one scary place.
Well, you know, here in California, we have, obviously I know California best, right? But we have a place called Pacheco Pass. And it has the highest number of accidents, supposedly, of any highway in California. That it's like the most lethal stretch of road. And you were talking about like haunted cars. Supposedly you see like haunted semis and all kinds of stuff. People have even reported seeing like stagecoaches on it. But yeah, there's a lot of accidents there, and people will see like ghosts walking along the side of the road and Pacheco Pass. It's not a good place.
Oh, dude, there are so many places like that here in British Columbia as well. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. Let's start up in Alaska, though, my friend, because the Alaskan Triangle is one of those mysteries where literally dozens of people go missing every year without a trace. Now, many people and experts believe that maybe they get caught in between some ice falling and avalanches or grizzly bear attacks or something along those lines. But there's never any trace of blood or footprints, just seem to end out of nowhere. What have you studied about the Alaskan Triangle?
Well, it's also airplanes. I mean, there's a very famous UFO sighting with a JAL flight that was up in that area. And it was because when you go to Japan, you kind of arc over that area. And they had this like massive UFO sighting while they were flying through I think they call it the Dragon's Triangle, but yeah, lots of like ships that disappear, a lot of fishing boats that disappear without a trace. And, a lot of times that people say, well, it's a fishing boat. It got caught in a storm. It sank, whatever. But I mean, just large numbers. In fact, I think as you know, sometimes I got to go way back in the data bank for some of this stuff. But if I remember correctly, Nick Bagich's father, who was like a senator, he disappeared in a plane in that area where the plane just like vanished off the face of the earth. No wreckage, no nothing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that flight, that Japanese Airlines flight 1680 that saw that mothership that was like a mile or 2 miles long. I mean, that pilot ended up getting fired over that.
And just the amount of radio traffic between him and air traffic control was like monstrous. I mean, he just kept saying, no, I can see this thing flying next to me. But yeah, him and the co-pilot, I think, were fired because they drew negative attention to the airline. But a lot of weird UFOs. In fact, I've heard stories from people who were sailors up there, on either military ships or fishing boats. And they'll tell you that when they cross into that area, because it kind of goes across all the way to Russia, when they enter that area, which is really far north, they'll see lights in the sky. They'll see discs, water spouts, all kinds of weird activity up there. And it's a forgotten triangle. Everybody remembers the Bermuda Triangle, or they're actually, I saw a map once that showed that there were 13 triangles interlocking, but that seems to be the one that everybody forgets about. And I think it's because that a lot of the boats that disappear, they're like crabbing boats or fishing boats, and people think they just went down. So there's this kind of, the seas are really rough up there, but there's a lot of disappearances of people too. I mean, in Alaska, people just like walk off and vanish. And as you said, there was a whole like group of native indigenous people up there, multiple villages that just everybody's gone. The village is there, but there's no people. So it makes you wonder.
Do you think that it has something to do with something supernatural or magical, or people just really, a little bit aloof? Because when you live in these rural communities, man, especially that high up north where you are dealing with depression, anxiety due to the amount of darkness that is currently happening around there, there's a lot of mental issues that go along with that. And they even doctors will even subscribe up here in Canada that if you have those conditions, living up that high up north, even where I am, isn't a very healthy atmosphere.
I think that it's like exorcism, right? Is everybody possessed by the devil? Or, well, no, of course not. Somebody probably is, but, there's a lot of mental illness and other things that filter into that too. I think that if I had to explain why these triangles exist, I think it's because they're areas of magnetic anomaly. So wherever you have magnetic anomalies or kind of oceanographic anomalies, that's where these triangles tend to appear. But if you have magnetic anomalies, it can do strange things to the planes and the boats. And, I think it all ties back to that. We have a kind of, when we go through school, right, we have a kind of laissez-faire attitude about the earth. And we're kind of taught, at least here, that, they teach you basic geology. Okay, well, this is a fault line, and this is how a mountain is made, and this is what an ocean is, and, very mundane kind of stuff. But I think that there's a whole lot more to it that we just kind of gloss over. That we go through our daily lives and we assume that we're going to wake up in the morning on time and we're going to walk out to the car. Oh, the coffee machine's going to work. We're going to walk out to the car and turn it on. And we're going to go to work, and then we're going to get tired and come home. We're going to have a beer and then, go to bed, right? But in some places in the earth, the rules don't apply, right? And these areas, when you get into these areas where the rules don't apply, it's not like you get one thing, right? It's like the Skinwalker Ranch, right? And there's not just one Skinwalker Ranch. There are multiple places where this kind of stuff happens. The Zone of Silence in Mexico is kind of like the Skinwalker Ranch. It's just not owned by Bigelow and doesn't have huge chain link fences and guards. But it exists, and you can go there and have the same kind of thing. And when you go there, it's not just that you see a UFO or your compass goes crazy or your cell phone doesn't work, maybe your car doesn't start. There's time loops, there's vortexes, there's UFOs, there's ghosts, everything. And so I think when you come into these areas, there's some sort of naturally occurring phenomenon that warps space-time and warps reality in these places. I can't tell you why. I'm not a theoretical physicist, but I suspect that there's a kind of thinning of what we term as reality, but there's like a thinning of the dimensions or a thinning of what we euphemistically call reality in these places. Because you look at the Bermuda Triangle, you've got that bomber flight that's incredibly famous. The whole lot of them just vanish. There's no wreckage. There's weird broadcasts coming from them. Everything's upside down. We're confused. These guys are bomber pilots. I mean, Some of them were combat pilots. You know, it's like, these are trained observers. This is not, you know, some guy taking a joyride in a Cessna 172. These guys knew what they were doing. Granted, the lead pilot had not been there for very long, but they were trained to deal with this kind of stuff, and the whole lot of them vanish. It's perplexing. Huge ships vanishing, you know. And I think it's because in these places there's some sort of distortion that we, as normal people walking around every day, we don't understand. And I think somebody somewhere understands it, because they have a tendency to route planes around these places, you know, and boats don't generally go through these places unless they have to. And so somebody somewhere, I think, has a better handle on what these things are, but they sure don't tell us, you know? Does that make sense?
It totally does. Off topic, I got a question from Everett coming in. Kind of goes by your phone call kind of dropping and your SIM card going haywire there for a minute.
Right.
He says, Olav, have you ever had any electronic communication issues while researching the secret space program concept?
I have, and they date back all the way to the very beginning. When I was a young UFO researcher, I love this story. When I was a young UFO researcher, I was still in college, and being a college student, I would stay up rather late and watch South Park or whatever and just be dumb. And as a result, Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings were like the prime time to sleep all day, right? And I had stayed up late with my friends, and I shared my apartment with my girlfriend, and we were sleeping. And at exactly 8 o'clock, I had just had it put up my website. Websites actually were new. It was a new thing, right? And I had scalped some space from a guy I knew, and I had a little website talking about UFOs, and they're all aliens, right? Whatever. And I went to UC Davis, and so this will become important in a minute. And so I'm laying there asleep, and at exactly 8 a.m. I got a phone call. And so I roll over, and I pick up the phone, and I'm groggy and hungover. I said, hello? And the guy on the other end of the phone, crystal clear, is this, Olav Phillips? And I said, yeah, that's me. He goes, do you have a website called the S4 database? I said, I do. He goes, I have information for you. And I said, okay. And I'm still groggy and not really thinking about it. And he says something to the effect of that they're testing exotic aircraft and reverse engineered vehicles at this Air Force base not far from Davis, probably maybe 45 minutes or an hour. And he knows the schedule. And this is like right out of X-Files, but this is before X-Files. And he knows the schedule. And says, I'll tell you what, I'll take you out there and we can watch it. And I think he said it was like on a Thursday night or something. And he was on the phone with me for I want to say it was like exactly 57 seconds or something. It was like 4 seconds short of what they needed to trace you, right? And he says, okay, I will call you back and we will arrange to meet. And I said, sure, whatever, because I'm a kind of go with the flow, laissez-faire kind of guy. I'm not, overly, I'm a fairly casual person. I'm not overly formal. I'm like, sure, whatever, yeah, just give me a call. And so I hang up the phone. And, of course, this is a great opportunity for me to go back to sleep. And so my girlfriend rolls over and looks at me and says, who was that? And I said, I don't know, some guy. He says they're testing UFOs at this Air Force base up there, and he knows where they are and what time they fly. And she says, and he called our apartment. And I said, yeah, he called our apartment. He asked to talk to me or whatever. And I'm groggy and not thinking. She's not. She's wide awake at this point. And she says, well, don't we have an unlisted phone number? And I said, well, yeah, of course we do. Nowadays, right, you can't really do that. But back then you could, and I enlisted the phone number. And she says, well, how did he get our phone number? And I said, I don't know. I'm tired. I'm going back to sleep. And she says, no. How did he get our phone number? I said, I have no idea. well, did you put it on the website? I said, of course I didn't put it on the website, right? No phone number on a website is real, right? They all go to switchboards and other places. And I said, no, I didn't put it on there. And she says, well, how did he get our phone number? And she's getting quite agitated at this point. And I said, I have no idea. He never called me back. And for the next 4 years of living up there, this back in the old days when they used mechanical phone switches, I could hear the clicking on the phone as they were activating the tap on my phone. And then later, as I delved more into the conspiracy stuff, you know, I would get searched on airplanes and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I've always had problems with electronic communications. Emails that don't reach you, phone calls that drop, all that stuff. Not so much anymore, but back then I did.
Well, it's funny because Everett and I had a little bit of a weird experience last night. I'm not going to say what we were talking about, but we were talking about potential topics for this show in the future. And all of a sudden, the call dropped. Now, of course, I'm on a cell phone. He's on a cell phone. Phones usually drop. Right? So I call him back, and I'm like, was that you? And he goes, no, was that you that hung up? And I said, no. And he says, you know, every time I go to talk about this subject, it seems like something happens with my phone. I'm like, okay, that's all right. And then, so we start kind of leaning towards that conversation again and kind of joking that we are getting listened to. And the phone drops again. And I'm at full bars. He's at full bars. Now, granted, okay, maybe they were having troubles with the server tower or whatever. There is always a logical explanation for that stuff. But it was creepy last night, man, because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden these phone calls over this topic, we had 2 dropped calls. So we started taunting them. Come on, boys. Hang up again. And then Everett starts bugging the guy about the cheap Sears suit that he's probably wearing. And I'm like, no, man, he has a nice tie on. You know, and then I think Everett brought up a mullet, and I'm like, no, that's a flat top with a high-quality mustache. You know, and I'm sure if they were actually listening in on the other side, my friend, that they were having a good laugh at us because they knew we were nervous chatting and you know, I don't know if I buy into that. All right, I'm more leaning towards that maybe there was a little bit of a cell phone tower issue or a connection issue, but there's still that little inkling in the back of your head that says, what if? What if they actually were listening in?
Well, I'll give you an example. I was on Ground Zero once, and we were talking about the secret space program. And this is very early in the maturation of the secret space program. It's kind of gotten out of control now, right? You know, but back in the early days, there were very few people that were interested in this. You know, everything was aliens, and they didn't want to hear about I'm not saying aliens don't exist, you know. I've had UFO sightings, but, you know, I don't think that they're all aliens, right? I try to, you know, figure it out, and some are, some aren't. You know, that's the Hynek model, right? 10%. And we were talking about the secret space program and Solar Warden and all that stuff. And I was talking about Alternative 3, which, you know, whenever I get on the radio, everybody wants Alternative 3. Unless I come here and then you want to talk about ghosts and Bigfoot, which is fantastic, and Lemuria. And so I'm on there, and this is a full-blown, you know, radio station. You know, these guys have very sophisticated phone systems, and they're, you know, they can do giveaways and, you know, all kinds of nutty stuff. And they put a lot of money in their phone system. So I'm talking about the secret space program, and I forget where I was in the process of talking about it. And suddenly the line goes dead. It didn't disconnect. It just went dead. And I'm like, what the hell? So I hang up the phone, and I call him back. I use the hotline number, and I called him back. And it's just ringing, no answer, because there's no voicemail on these kinds of lines. And it's just ringing, no answer. And so I'm like, okay, well, something catastrophic has happened. if there is going to be a radio show tonight, they'll call me back, right? So I always sit outside in my backyard when I do these, and I'm sitting outside right now, and I had a little fire in my fire pit, and I just sat there waiting. And about 10 minutes later, they called me back, and they got me on the show. And Clyde, the host, he explains to the audience, because they had all kinds of problems broadcasting, and he explains that somebody had actually hacked into the phone system, that they had to get the computer engineering guys, wake them up, and get them to come into the office to reboot the phone system, because somebody had come in and put it into some sort of weird maintenance mode and shut it down. And nobody has ever explained why that happened. And it happened multiple times for various reasons with me and with a couple of other people. But yeah, no, it absolutely happens. I don't know who did it, but it definitely can happen. Yeah. But
what would be the purpose for that, though? Okay, they know, even a show like this, my friend, they know that no matter what we talk about, it's not going to stop them from doing whatever they are doing. It's not going to make a difference whatsoever.
I think it has to do with letting you know that they're there. I don't think that they expect to stop you, but it's more like, don't forget we're over here, right? It's not even meant to scare you per se. It's more like just remember we're out here, right? And one of the things that, when you do conspiracy research, right, I would argue to you that every conspiracy researcher has that one topic that they're obsessed with, but they will not go on the record about, and they will not divulge. And whatever they figured out, they hit a threshold. And if you go further, bad things happen. And over time, you start to understand that there are methods of how you can do the research you want to do and not be harassed, right? But some people don't follow those rules, and we can talk about mysterious deaths of UFO researchers anytime you want. I mean, there's some real doozies, but there's a method that you can follow where it's not as dangerous per se. But I think that these things happen because somebody somewhere is sending you a message. It's like, we're over here and don't forget it. Right? It's like a check, keeping you in check.
I can see that. Yeah. But in that type of espionage, is it even worth it anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Is it real humans and not just computer algorithms that are maybe interrupting a signal?
It could be a computer at this point. I mean, I would argue to you that based on what I know of DARPA, that somewhere in one of these secret facilities, secret data centers that they have scattered all over, right, there's an AI. An actual, honest-to-God, fully functional AI. And that AI may be making the decision at this point. But back in the day, it was a person. And I think that some of that was a bit of just don't forget we're here, right? But no, it very well could be an AI at this point. And like I said, I would argue to you that there's at least one or two fully operational AIs in existence that are processing data, probably processing signal data, if I had to make a guess.
I always wonder about that now, if they would even waste human time to do that. Now, maybe if they were on a big case, like trying to get Pablo Escobar again, even though he's dead, or something along those lines, I could see where the monitors would be human because they're going to want to hear it firsthand rather than playing on a recording. I get that. But for somebody like everyday citizen who says their phones are tapped or that they are getting brought to, visited by the men in black or something along those lines, I find that to be difficult, man. I do. I can't see them wasting human time and money on something like that.
But that in and itself is the first fault that we as researchers, because you're a researcher too, that is the first fault that we make, is that we make assumptions about how they categorize and classify things. When I do research, I try not to go down that path because I can't control what other people do. And I can't figure out what their motives are inherently. So I'll give you a great example. My dad, as I said, was in the Air Force. And we went to an air show at an Air Force base. Because, the Thunderbirds were going to be there, right? The greatest aerial demonstration on the Earth.
Right.
The Thunderbirds are the shiznit. So we went to go see the Thunderbirds. So we're driving into the base. And where in the rest of the world there would be a cone with an arrow saying "Park here," there's a person, right? So everywhere there should have been a cone directing you somewhere, there's a guy standing there with his water bottle and fatigues, saying "Go over here, go over here," for like 8 or 9 hours. Go over here, go over here, go over here. And I asked my dad. I said, "Well, Dad, that's insane. They're basically paying this guy to stand there as a human traffic cone. That makes no sense to me." And he said, "You're looking at it the wrong way." He said, "What do they have?" They have a lot of people, right? Even with reductions and everything else. In the military, they have a lot of people. And if they need something done, they just assign people to do it. And sometimes they need to find things for people to do. And so today, that poor guy is a human traffic cone. That's his job today. Tomorrow, he may be loading nuclear weapons onto a bomber, but today he's a human traffic cone because there's a lot of them, people, and they need to give them something to do. And I thought about that for a long time, and it finally dawned on me, I get it. So, if we try to say, well, look, they wouldn't waste their time with me, I'm too small time, and that's okay with me. I don't want the harassment. I would rather not be harassed. But the reasons why they would assign a person to monitor another person are unfathomable to me. I have no idea why they would do it, but I wouldn't put it past them. The minute you tread into the conspiracy world, you have to take off these blinders of conventional reality and kind of rules that make sense to you. And you have to say, everything's on the table. And that's why I said, you just kind of have to take it at face value. If you think you're being monitored, you probably are. Is it by a person or a computer or an algorithm or an AI? I don't know. But you're being monitored regardless, and the conversation's still being played back to a human because all these systems ultimately go back to people, right?
I understand that, and that was proven with a lot of the security laws that have been brought in the United States and here in Canada. Here in Canada, it was called Bill C-51, and I understand that they have been monitoring all sorts of phone calls, in the modern age, legally and illegally. But since the Patriot Act came through, it's pretty much legally all around. But still, nonetheless, I have a hard time believing, Olav, and we've had people on this show who are experiencers, whether it's UFOs, alien contact, whatever it may be, who say that they have been visited by men in black or black helicopters flying over their homes. I just don't see why, Joe Sixpack, who works a 9-to-5 job, just wants to try to get through life debt-free. That's his only goal. All right? And he has some weird UFO experiences, or he's being taken and listens to shows like this, where all of a sudden he's getting, a little bit worried because these men in black are showing up at the door. In the meantime, we have people who've had a plethora of experiences who have never been visited whatsoever. They're public about it. They go on radio shows and documentaries on television about it, try and get as much attention about it. They talk in the public about it, and they get nothing. It makes no sense.
It does, though. All UFO sightings are not created equally. So what the one person who says they've been visited by the MIBs, right? You don't know the dynamics of what they actually saw. So there may have been something in that experience that triggered somebody somewhere to say, okay, we need to monitor this person. This other person who saw a UFO and maybe was abducted or had an experience or whatever, maybe their experience did not have the same technology involved or the same people involved or the same location involved. There's some reason why theirs is seen as more mundane and it not as interesting. So you and I could both walk out. Well, I'm already outside, but you could go walk outside your house right now, right? And you could see a UFO hover above your house. And I could see a UFO hover above my house. Now, why are you going to get a MIB and I'm not? Well, maybe what I saw, they knew about, right? And they were monitoring it in some other way, right? Or maybe it was built by us, and I just happened to see it at the wrong time. I think I actually had a UFO sighting like that. But maybe what you saw wasn't planned, and you weren't supposed to see it, and the cloaking system failed, right? And so they're more intrigued by you because what you saw shouldn't have been seen. And so they're going to come over to you and they're going to say, hey, what did you see? Tell us all about it. And you're going to tell them, and then they're going to take that back and file that report so it can be analyzed. And then they're going to get the orders, go back out there and tell that guy to shut up. And they're going to tell you to shut up because whatever you saw wasn't supposed to be there. It's the same reason, I think, why. Have you ever been to East City?
I haven't had the opportunity. I haven't had the opportunity. I have an open invite. I just haven't had the opportunity to get down there yet.
That place is surreal. That is probably the strangest place, well, one of the strangest places I've ever been in my whole life. The amount of anomalous, weird stuff that you see in a 5-hour period is more than most people will see in their entire lifetimes. That place is unreal. But if you're sitting there in the field, there's a field there, and you sit in it, you watch all these things happen, vortexes, hangar doors opening on the sides of mountains. I saw Bigfoot there, weird things flying over your head. I saw an aurora. I mean, the whole thing, right? But why don't they shut it down? Why do they let us all go out there whenever we feel like it and go see this stuff? Because they don't care. Because whatever we're seeing, they've deemed as being okay to see. So they're not going to do anything about it. They're going to be like, you know what? You want to go out there, see some UFOs, have fun, have a barbecue, and have a good time. Drink some beers, have your mind blown. Conversely, if I'm driving along the freeway out in the middle of nowhere and I see this big triangle fly over my head, right, that was supposed to have a cloaking system, an adaptive camouflage system, which had failed, and I'm watching it, and then I go call up my best buddy and go, dude, guess what I just saw? And I trip something somewhere in the algorithm. They're going to come down and they're going to interrogate me and say, well, what did you see? And I'm going to tell them all about it because, I want to be helpful, right? And or they send MUFON, and MUFON, they just mine MUFON's data, whatever. Then when they're done, they tell me, okay, you didn't see what you thought you saw. Just forget about it because that wasn't supposed to be there at the moment that I saw it. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so they're going to try to make sure that I'm not going to discuss that wrong moment to other people. But meanwhile, you're over at the Gilliland Ranch watching stuff all night. I mean, it's literally all night. It peters out about 2 a.m. But because not all sightings are equal. What I'm seeing there, they know and they've planned for and they don't care about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. And you know, I kind of have wondered about that with a show like this as well. I mean, we've had people say, and I've had people say on the air, have you been visited by Men in Black, Dave? Have you had the phone calls? Have you had this? Have you had that? The answer has been no. No. And I don't know why.
I've never been visited. Yeah, I've never been visited by the MIBs. At one point, I think there were black helicopters flying over my house, but I don't know if they were just flying over the whole area or were flying over my house. You know, I had the weird stuff on the phone, but you know, I don't think that I'm that interesting to them because of the way that I do things. I don't think I'm that interesting to them. It's not that what I'm saying isn't interesting or isn't factual, but it's that somewhere somebody's determined it to not be threatening. Maybe it's the way I say it, or maybe it's how I research it, or I don't know. But, you know, I think that they save that for really exotic cases. You know, people who get visited by MIBs, something really, truly out of beyond the pale and overly significant happened. Because if you look at the classic cases, you know, like the Cash Lindstrom incident and others, you know, these are very involved cases. It's not like just the Men in Black show up. You know, I mean, Tim Beckley, you know, he'll tell you about being followed by the MIBs through New York. And he actually has a photo of one.
Yes. I've seen. Well, what constitutes then, Olav, Men in Black coming to visit you, me, or anybody? Do they have a rule book and a playbook that they have to go through? Do we have any information on this?
This is where I diverge from some other researchers, right? Because I try to apply something called Occam's razor to my research. And Occam's razor dictates that the simplest answer is probably the right one. That as human beings, we make things more complicated than they actually are. And I think for my money, because of the way they do things, and, you know, you'll always hear these weird stories of, oh, yeah, you know, this Men in Black MIB, and I almost hear it sounds weird when you go, this man in black or whatever, I'll just call them MIBs. This MIB walks across a muddy field, and there's no mud on their clothes. Right? Or they spoke strangely, or, you know, you always hear these stories. But I think 9 times out of 10 that the people that constitute the MIB, they're agents of some entity, of which I don't know for sure who they are. I can guess, but they constitute agents of some entity. And that entity is governmental or extra-governmental, but it has rules. Everything has rules. Everything has rules. If you think about a UFO that's flying through the air piloted by aliens, it still has to follow the laws of physics. Maybe it's physics that we don't yet understand, but it still has to follow the laws of physics, right? Magic is science you don't understand, somebody once told me. I think that's probably fairly true. So, you know, if a MIB shows up, that MIB was ordered to go there, asked, whatever, to go there for a specific purpose. They don't just show up. And that alone shows you that there's some sort of rule book. The way they do things is carbon copy. They always do things pretty much the same way. You know, they drive the same kind of cars. They always dress the same. That implies that there's some sort of a set of rules or procedures. Even if they're alien, we may not understand their rules or procedures because it comes from an alien intelligence, but there are rules and procedures for everything. If you want to pump gas in your car, there's rules and procedures. If you want to smoke a cigarette, there's rules and procedures. You know, everything has rules and procedures. So I'm sure, I'm 100% certain there's rules and procedures. Absolutely.
It reminds me of Transformers with Sector 7, where the one dude says, I have a get away with it and do it anything that I want badge. You know what I'm saying? I'm wondering if that's more what it was, that the law really doesn't pertain to them because of what they are dealing with.
No, I disagree. I think the law always applies. Because the minute you don't have law, you don't have order. And the minute you don't have order, you have chaos. And the entire system is built on control and order. If you look at the way that the world operates, this obviously is more conspiratorial than ufology or paranormal stuff. But if you look at the way the world works, right, the world is based on the concept of mediocrity, right? That everything is, and mediocrity is not necessarily bad. We give it a negative connotation, this notion of mediocrity. But what mediocrity actually is median. So what's the median sales price of a house? What's the median sales price of a car? What's the median sales price of a prescription? What's the median sales price of a pack of cigarettes? It's always about the middle, right? Most people politically are in the middle. There's a loud group on the left. There's a loud group on the right. But most people are in the center somewhere. They ascribe to this, but not that. They cherry pick what they want to follow. Maybe they think they're Republicans. Maybe they think they're Democrats. Maybe they think they're libertarians. But at the end of the day, because they're centrist, everything overlaps, right? In general. When you have a corporation, corporations are built on the same concept. That when they figure out how much you get paid, right? They go out and they do these vast analysis of how much does a clerk make in the Fortune 500. And they all talk and they all figure out how much they all pay clerks. They find the median point halfway between high and low. They find the median point, and when a new clerk comes in, they say, you get paid the median. When you get a review at work, right? Generally, you're in the middle. You're not great. You're not bad. You're in the middle. And they want you in the middle because you want to do better. Every human being on the face of the earth, pretty much, it's always exceptions, but pretty much everybody wants to do better. You want to go to work and do a better job and make your boss happy. You want to drive better so you don't have a car accident. You want to exercise so your health is better, right? It gives you something to work toward. It's a motivational step. But everything is built on a concept of median. My house, the value of my house is determined by its location, its construction, and what's in it, right? But the way that when you go to buy it, you do an analysis of, anybody who's bought a house, the real estate agent will do an analysis of what the median price for this area is. And then you either pay higher or lower than the median based on do you want recessed lighting? Do you want a carport versus a garage? Do you want nothing? Do you want more land, less land? All these things affect the price, but it starts at the median. Does that make sense?
I understand that. I really don't think that they would have to play by a set of rules, because if it ever came down to a court of law, I don't think if they are government officials like a hidden sector of the CIA or the DIA or NSA or USA or whatever three-letter adjective you could think of, I don't think that they are going to want to be called out into a court of law. That's why I really believe that if these men in black exist, that they wouldn't have to play by the regular rules.
No, you see, they play by the regular rules. I'm not saying that their rules aren't special, but if you're going to take a MIB and you're going to try him for abuse of power, right, you're not going to do it in the Third Circuit. You're going to do it in some sort of obscure, strange little court that they arrange for themselves. It's like when you go in the military, right? When you set foot in the military, you no longer follow the rules of common society. You're judged by a completely different thing. In the military, you're judged against, they have their own laws. For example, adultery, right? In the rest of the world, if your spouse is adulterous, you divorce them and you move on, right? And depending on what state you live in, maybe you can get more stuff, maybe you can get less stuff, maybe it's split down the center, right? Whatever. In the military, you get court-martialed and you can be sent to prison for that kind of stuff because you're judged against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Those are the rules that you follow. You don't follow the Bill of Rights or anything else. You follow the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's why if you have a case in a military court, you have to have either a military lawyer or you have to have a lawyer that is knowledgeable of the military system. See, you can be tried in a decent court, or, it's all classified. I mean, they have courts that are completely classified. That's where, if somebody were to be tried for abuse of power and it was a MIB, that's probably where they would end up, is some sort of classified court. But if there are no rules, if you have a completely get-out-of-jail-free card, what's to prevent the MIB from going nuts and doing anything? You can't. You always have to have structure.
Well, how come we don't seem to see or hear of too many people having these experiences anymore? You think with all the technology out there with these men in black, Olav, that we would have more photos, more videos, more people have cameras in their car for accident purposes, but you could definitely film someone following you, that's for sure. Yet we don't seem to have any good quality footage of these or photographs like Beckley's photograph.
Beckley's photo is crazy. Anybody who has not seen Beckley's photo of a MIB, it's impressive. It is truly impressive. There is that one video of the two MIBs going into a building. But I think, hitting on what you were talking about earlier, I think there are less sightings of MIBs because I think the notion of a MIB is less useful now. The heyday of the MIBs was the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, right? But now, the methods of monitoring and the methods of control are very different. So I don't think that they're necessarily as useful anymore. I would argue that today, like if, I get off the phone with you and I go to bed about 2 a.m., if I get a knock on the door and there's a MIB, I'm in trouble, right? Where I think it was more common in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s because during that time, there was less capability. Now, if they want to know from about the 80s on, if they wanted to know what I was doing right now, they got a satellite in orbit that can do it. I remember when I was a kid, I was probably 12 years old, 13 years old, and I went to the library back when the library had books. I went to the library, and I used to spend hours in the library. And go figure, right? And I had this book about surveillance satellites, right? And obviously, photography from surveillance satellites, for the most part, is classified. Sometimes they declassify stuff, but in general, it's pretty much going to go into the you're not ever going to get it vault. Well, so they did a demonstration using a normal satellite. And basically what they did is they wanted to show you how high precision these things are. And this is in the late 80s, okay? They show the Earth. Then they showed the Western Hemisphere. Then they showed the Americas. Then they showed North America. And they kept drilling down. And at the time, I didn't know where it was, but I think it was like Sunnyvale that they actually drilled down to. And eventually, they drilled down to a photo of a guy laying in a hammock with a copy of War and Peace on his chest, open, and you could read it. So if they wanted to know exactly what I'm doing right now, they got a satellite up there that can watch me in real time while they're syncing up this phone call in real time. That makes the need for a MIB less because you already know what they're saying, you know what they're doing. Where the MIB would show up and interrogate you and tell you didn't see anything. With the advent of the X-Files and Fringe and, all these other shows, right? Sightings and, all these shows. I think that there's a kind of narrative that's been created about UFOs that they've helped to construct, and so that there's less necessity for the MIBs. But I do think that they're out there.
We only got a couple minutes here before we got to go to break here at the top of the hour. Olav, no, I think you're talking just fine. I think you're doing great. When it comes to Men in Black, though, do you believe they're human, or do you believe, like a lot of people, that they might be of alien descent?
I think they're human. I absolutely think they're human. If I was an alien, why would I need them? Right? Because the whole notion, the way I think about aliens and UFOs and abductions and stuff, is I go back to Marlin Perkins and Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Here's Marlin sitting up in his Hughes helicopter with a tranquilizer gun, and he looks at a big herd of bison, and he shoots a bison with a tranquilizer gun, and then they just descend like flies onto this poor buffalo, and they put a tracker in them, and they do all this other stuff, and then they let them go and they follow them. I think that's more what the alien experience is. Why would an alien need to interrogate you? They wouldn't. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be... It's like your friend. He doesn't want to really be seen. He just wants you to know he's there. Right?
I can see that, and I can, put some trust and faith into that opinion. But what about these scenarios that we hear of where we have, alleged bodyguards of the president who are supposed to be of alien descent? Things like that. I mean, are they following us that closely with the aliens, or are they just hiding them in plain sight? What do you think? We got about 60 seconds.
I think there are probably some that are hiding in plain sight, but I don't think bodyguards of the president are aliens. It's too risky. I don't think they would do that. I think it's just humans wanting it to be that way.
Our imagination's going crazy.
Yeah, we all have them. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I've seen things that I'm sure are airplanes, but before I changed my way of thinking, I thought they were UFOs, piloted by aliens. I had an aha moment one day, and then I started to look at it differently, and then it changed my opinion.
Mm-hmm. My friend, I'm going to get you to hold on here. We are going to go to our final break of the night. We got another half an hour with Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine. We're going to get into more UFOs, scary places, people who've gone missing, disappeared, died under strange circumstances. Let's get eerie this last 30 minutes. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more Olav Phillips and The Encounter right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thanks for being with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the program, the legend, Stanton Friedman, joins us probably for the last time on this show as we are talking UFOs and his retirement from the research community. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe FM. And don't forget to check out our archives on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. When you're there, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Desyphilis. Desyphilis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We got Olav Phillips with us until the bottom of the hour when we enter in Everett Themer for the encounter. Olav's website, paranoiamagazine.com. If you want to check it out, I highly suggest you do. Some real weird, strange stories on there. Olav, welcome back to the show.
Hey, I'm back.
Hey,
I wanted to make...
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to make a suggestion really fast. Since it's the last time you're ever going to have Stanton Friedman on, probably, right?
Yes.
Ask him about the work that he did before he became a ufologist. It's not conspiratorial, but it's fascinating. He, if I remember correctly, he worked on mounting nuclear reactors on airplanes.
Yes, I remember that. I remember him saying that.
You should ask him how that went.
Let me ask you this. Stanton Friedman, and we got another topic to get into here momentarily, but Stanton Friedman... Right. You know, he is known as a real legend in this community. Never had a sighting or anything that he couldn't self-explain. Brilliant mind, nuclear physicist. We don't have a lot of them in this community.
No.
There's two questions I want to ask you. What's the biggest loss of Stanton Friedman finally deciding to hang up his UFO glasses to, you know, walk away into retirement if you can retire from this field? What does that mean?
I think the greatest loss of Stanton Friedman is the method that he used. You can debate with him, and I would, about Roswell and other things, and the notion of the cosmic Watergate that he's carried on for quite some time. But what you can never fault Stanton Friedman on is the quality of his work. That when he goes into a topic, he approaches it very methodically, and he does the footwork. I mean, he really, does research the hell out of this stuff, and he applies rational thinking to it. And I think we're drifting now toward a place that is more irrational. Alien mummies and, blue spheres and all this other stuff. It's kind of losing its traction of being a scientific problem. And I think that Stanton Friedman, he applied logic and science to what he researched. And I think that's a massive loss.
Who replaces him? We talked about it on this show when Jim Mars passed away, and I've talked to Grant Cameron and I've talked to other people about this who are aging. The UFO powerhouses, the research powerhouses, whether it's Linda Moulton Howe, Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett is in his early 70s. There's a real older generation there that has done a lot of the legwork for the newer researchers. But there really doesn't seem to be a lot of younger researchers, 20s, 30s, really stepping up to the plate to take over the reins. Why do you think that is?
I think there are a couple of problems involved, right? One is that something that I think you're probably familiar with is that maybe not so much in the conspiracy world, i.e. Jim Mars, but I think there are a lot of people in the conspiracy world that are out there. But in ufology is a very divisive area to research. And there's a lot of infighting. And they kind of eat their young. And, you get somebody who's coming up, and I've seen it before. You get somebody who's coming up and maybe, I don't think Stanton Friedman ever did this, but there are people who did and do. I think the younger people coming up are kind of pushed to the side because they represent, a threat of taking away of some of the notoriety, right?
Is it a different New Age type of thinking, Olav?
I think there is a lot more New Agey stuff in it now. There was in the 70s, it kind of died out in the 80s. In the 90s, it was more conspiratorial. And then in the 2000s, it's drifting back toward the New Age. And that's okay. There's a place for everybody at the table, I think. I'm not very New Agey, but I am about certain things.
Right.
But everybody has a seat. But yeah, I don't know that there's. The problem is the older generation. They came into it in the 60s and the 70s, and they had a different mindset, and it was about the science of it. It was about the detail of it, and I think now it's about the feeling of it and about the thought of it. And I don't know that there are that many people who are coming in now who are rising up through the ranks, who are interested in the technical aspects of it.
Right. And this will be my final question on this because we do have to move on, but in your opinion then, is the field of ufology in trouble going towards the future?
I think so. Because there's not these stalwarts like MUFON have had significant problems, right? I mean, MUFON, it pretty much came out that Bigelow pretty much bought all their data and then was shilling it to the Pentagon and the DOD.
Right.
And so they lost a lot of cachet in that process. And then, and then Bigelow was always seen as the knight in shining armor, super rich guy who just loved to fund this stuff out of his own interest. Oh, by the way, he was being paid by the DOD.
That's true.
And he kept everything. Yeah, and he kept everything secret. And everybody got NDAs, and he sealed off Skinwalker Ranch. And he would only send the NIDS guys in, and then NIDS faltered, and now nobody's going in there. It's just locked up, right? If you're really interested in it, you'd be sending people into Skinwalker Ranch to figure out what the hell that place truly is.
That's true.
Right? Because I think it's one of those distortion places. But I don't see, I'm not a huge speaker at conventions or anything like that, but I see them, and I don't see the commitment to the technical aspects of it. I see only the commitment to the feeling of it or the ideology of it, but not the nuts and bolts of it. And I think you need all of it. I don't think you can really understand a phenomenon unless you have the people who feel it, you have the people who believe it, and you have the nuts and bolts of it.
That is true.
Because there's always nuts and bolts, man. There's always nuts and bolts. It's a UFO, whether it's piloted by humans or aliens, is a physical thing. I mean, you can argue that, right? But somewhere it's a physical thing. The laws of physics apply to it. It's piloted. There's consciousness in the way that it's flown. It flies. There's science there. And I think we're going back toward the kind of 50s attitude of it. There are space brothers here to save us from ourselves. I personally don't buy it. Yeah, it's going back to the contactee era, and I don't buy it. I never did. My theory about Valiant, Thor, and the Nordics. I think they're Nazis. I don't think they're aliens at all. So, it's all it's all karma and happy time, but I think we need to say, okay, well, it's karma and happy time. We need to understand that, but at the same time, what makes the damn thing fly? They're real. We all know it, but what makes them fly? That's what I care about. I don't think they're here to save us. So, you know,
I don't think they're here to take us over, though.
No, if they wanted to take us over, they would have done it 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
They wouldn't have done it now.
I agree. We're going to get into a quick consciousness thing here. But before we do, I want to get to a question from Johnny and bring it to your attention here. He says, we know that Steven Spielberg has been making movies based on important subjects for years, especially when it comes to disclosure. E.T. was for the kids, Close Encounters of the Third Kind was based on the Holloman landing incident, etc. Is it possible that the Transformers movies, produced by Bay and Spielberg, was trying to warn us about the AI threat in the universe? What's your thoughts?
I think it's possible. I would go to AI, made by Spielberg, as more of a transhumanist threat, kind of movie. But yeah, absolutely. I do believe in predictive programming. He has a knack for that kind of thing, so definitely. I think that's, again, all cards are on the table. So I think it's totally possible. And if you look at the work of people like Paul Laviolette, and his stuff with the pulsars, it's obvious that there's some sort of a system up there and people are transiting and going around and doing things. But we don't know who they are. We don't know why they do it. So maybe somebody somewhere has a better idea. And it's totally feasible that we would have a better idea, because I go back to what, I know it's MUFON, but Jan Harzan, has gone on the record saying that when the guy who's head of the Skunk Works was speaking at that Caltech alumni dinner, he literally said, not only can I take ET home, but I have the contract. So we're out there, at least Lockheed is out there. We're out there doing stuff. Maybe we found things. If anybody wants to see something crazy that's alien and UFO related, go do a search on YouTube for EBE Mona Lisa. That'll blow your mind.
Now I got to write that
down. You watch that. EVE Mona Lisa. You watch that, and then you'll think to yourself, oof.
Oh, that just scares me.
I mean, it's not super scary, but I mean, the implications of it are.
We got about 14 minutes left with you, and I wanted to get to this event that we want to do, because the last time you were here, as we mentioned off the top of the show, Carl showed up. Carl and his buddies, and you want to try
waning hour,
and you want to try and manifest it. Well, I got the window here, which if Carl shows up, I will turn the camera to the window.
Right on. So,
what do you want the audience to do?
So, like many people who are listening to the show, and you and me and everybody else, I was always a big fan of Art Bell, and I loved his thought experiments. And what I was thinking is that why don't we all put our brain power together and to think and to project for Carl to show up. So everybody think to themselves, Carl, show up. We want Dave to see Carl. Just think about that for a couple minutes. And let's see if we can convince Carl as a massive, unified entity that it's okay for him to show up. We want him to show up. And maybe talk. So let's get to it.
Let's manifest that. Just put your energy into Carl. Like he's going to bring his buddies and stop their ship right over top of the house here. Yeah. And then Carl's going to beam on down and stare in the window again. Now, I don't know if he does that. Like, I'm not feeling it. But I mean, we're just starting this. I think right. Carl's kind of given me a break because of all the stress I've been under with the new studio build and getting everything done. Eating a lot of Nanaimo bars too. But nonetheless, I'm willing to go for this. So let's park that ship right over top of SOR headquarters here. And
beam them right down in front of
beam them right down in front of the window here. That would be kind of cool. That'd be really kind of cool.
I want to remind everybody that this kind of stuff works. This is not a waste of your thought power. Things like tulpas, and they do exist. So you projecting your wanting of Carl to show up, it does have an impact. So please actually do this. Let's see if we can get him to show up.
Energy. Come on. Doodle-loo-loo, doodle-loo-loo. Just like Wayne's World, Doodle-loo-loo, doodle-loo-loo. That's what we need to do. More Wayne's World. Like that. While we're manifesting this, let's get to a question from Tim in St. Louis. He's saying, Olav, what do you think about the people that go missing in national parks? What do you think's happening to them?
The simple answer, I believe that they're being abducted by humans and sent to Mars as a slave labor force. Because if you look at a map, there was a map in the 90s made by this guy THAL that shows all these secret underground bases in the West. If you overlay the map from David Paulides of the disappearances, that the concentrations of disappearances conform to the THAL's map of secret underground bases. So I think they're being abducted, and they're called batch consignments. You need somebody to
What about children? What about children, though? I mean, I remember David Paulides. I was listening to him talking about a case in Manitoba in a farming community where a young 2-year-old child, I mean, they had one of those long, dusty gravel driveways that you would see a car coming for about half a mile because of its trail on the road. And this little boy, 2 years old, goes running around. The dogs are right there, goes running around the corner to meet up with Dad. And as they come around the corner, Dad's like, "Where's the boy?" And the boy is just gone. And if you've been to rural Manitoba, you would know that your closest neighbor is probably, 30 to 100 to 200 acres away.
I can't explain all of them. I can explain the ones, I think I can explain the ones in the national parks. Some of the other ones, I don't know. It could be like a time slip. We don't have enough time left in the show, but I could tell you stories that have been told to me about time slips. In fact, I heard one just today about a town. Some people, they drove through a town that wasn't there, but it had been there 200 years ago or 100 years ago. This town had been there, and then boom, they went back through it, and it's not there anymore. My friend, he went to a restaurant that had burned down 30 years before he had gone to it, but he still had the receipt that they gave him when he went in there. So time slips possible. I don't know. In the case of the national parks, I think they batch take them all because you're raising them into that environment, so you're raising them to be a worker drone. So I don't think that that's necessarily off the table. But in the onesie twosies like the Manitoba case, I don't know. I really don't.
Well, I know in reports that David Paulides has taken as well, I mean, there have been people who have seen, even though it's never been on record, seen a child being picked up or put on the shoulders by a Sasquatch as well.
Right. That has happened. There are also weird cases where the Boy Scout troop one is the one that comes to mind, where they rounded a corner and the kid was just vanished, and there was like 20 feet between him and the adults, and he was just gone. And he showed up naked 2 miles away or 4 miles away. I think some of that may be Sasquatch kind of stuff, but, what you're talking about in rural Manitoba, there's no Sasquatch there. Not in the middle of a farm. So I don't, some of them defy logic. But that's like I said, it's nuts and bolts. Something causes it to happen. And it, Paulides, he does a magnificent job of documenting them, but he won't necessarily comment on why. And I think that that's a case where you need somebody nuts and bolts to get in there and try to understand why. Take the magnetic readings, take the environmental readings, try to figure it out.
Another question coming from the chat room from Moo, who is asking, what do you think of the shift in solar flash and what will happen?
Solar flares?
Maybe solar flares? I'm not a solar flare type of guy. Actually, you know what? I am a solar flare kind of guy because that means I get a really nice light show with the northern lights here.
Oh, yeah, you do. They're beautiful. Their northern lights are insane. You know, the solar flares, you know, I think one of these days it's going to cook half the earth. It's inevitable, but, you know, you don't know when it's going to happen. They go through seasons and patterns, so they come and they go. I mean, I don't think we're mining energy off the sun, although, you know, that is totally possible, but I don't think that we're doing it. I don't think we have the capability to do that yet. I think we're close, but not yet.
Lots of people putting the energy into Carl, and I got to tell you, the energy around here has not changed. Has not changed.
But the night is not over.
This is true. This is very true.
You got another half an hour after me, so, you know, I wouldn't put it past him. But you know what? He may not want to be called and told when to show up. And, you know, he's being welcomed. So he may show up. He's going to do it on his own timetable.
Very true. Very true. I mean, you just never know when it'll happen.
I think he's going to show up.
You think so?
I have a feeling he's going to. Yeah. I just don't think he's going to show up when I'm on the air.
I don't know, man. Not really feeling it. Not going to lie. Not really
feeling
it.
Yeah, but it can be sudden. I don't know. I feel like something's going to happen.
Well, we'll soon see. We will soon see. We got about 4.5 minutes left with you, my friend. That was quick.
Okie dokie.
Way too
It was.
quick.
It's always way too quick.
You know,
always way too quick.
You know what, Olav? Actually, I got some dates open in July, near the end of July. We should bring you back on to talk about those time slips. What do you think?
Sure. Oh, they're a doozy. I've heard some real crazy stories about time slips.
I'm a fan of crazy. I'm a fan of crazy.
Me too. I love crazy. I seek this stuff out. Like on weekends, you know, pretty much at least every other weekend, I hit the road. And whether I'm going to a roadside attraction or I'm going somewhere weird, a couple weeks ago, I went to a place called Grass Valley, and there was a guy named Lyman, and there was an airfield that he had in this place in this town called Grass Valley. It's now a school, but supposedly he built a plane that was steam powered that flew before the Wright brothers.
That's odd.
So, yeah. So, you know, I have a little group on Facebook of people that they go out adventuring too, and we post reports of our adventures.
Excellent.
It's called the Society of Obscure Adventurers.
You just added me to that. Thank you for that, actually.
Yeah. I just mailed you your ID card.
Nice. We get ID cards too. I can't wait.
You get ID card.
I can't wait to put that in my wallet and try and cross the border. That's going to be fun.
I went to an Army store, and they had all these fleece jackets from England, and they were all like police jackets. They said police on them, and one of them was from the Home Office, and it was like Border Protection Force. I should have gotten it for you. Maybe they'd let you.
Yeah, they don't have too much of a sense of humor. They really don't have too much of a sense of humor. No, it's a little ridiculous.
No, they really. Yeah.
My friend, we got about 90 seconds with you. Do me a favor. Tell everybody out there in Radio Land where they could find Paranoia Magazine, where they could find you, get a hold of you to tell you any weird or strange stories.
Sure. ParanoiaMagazine.com is the epicenter of paranoia-ness. On Facebook, you can find me. I'm there. Paranoia has a page on Facebook. Just search for Paranoia Magazine. You can't miss it. And, check out the Society of Obscure Adventurers. We're trying to grow a little bit and have active people in there posting weird places that they're going so we can all share the info.
Definitely.
And you can contact me on paranoiamagazine.com or on Facebook.
Still got that good beard going there, buddy?
I do.
Nice.
I just got it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I look like a real lumber.
You'd fit right in up here. You'd fit right in. We
I
gotta
wear
get you. Damn it, man! You got to get your butt up here. Show you some strange things.
Oh yeah, I all my clothes are Carhartt. I wear plaid.
You'd
Everything
fit right in.
my shoes are Carhartt.
Wow. Do we have a store for you up here?
So like Fleet Farm?
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
You ever been to Fleet Farm?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I went to Minnesota and North Dakota. Fleet Farm's the best.
Nice.
I love Fleet Farm. Yeah.
Olav, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend. Always a pleasure. I'm going to get a hold of you in the next day or two here because I want to get you scheduled in for late July because I really want to find out about these time slips. That's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely, and I'll put a call out to everybody to send me more stories, so we have lots of stories for you.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Olav Phillips.
All right, man.
You take care, buddy. Olav Phillips comes on Spaced Out Radio to talk about everything weird and strange, usually a secret space program. We'll get him back on for you next month. Coming up now, The Encounter.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains closing in the darkness. We expose what lies beneath.
At this time of the day, we go to a brand new feature here on Spaced Out Radio, which we call The Encounter, where we bring in Everett Themer from The Encounter Online as we are in the process of rebuilding our brand new news section on spacedoutradio.com. We discuss everything from the strange and scientific to the weird and what the hell. It is the news of the day. Everett, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for being here. And I love listening to Olav. When he tells a story and you start to get the creeps and the chills and looking in the corner, that is fun.
It really is, isn't it? It really is. And there was a cut phone call in that again.
Of course. You never know. You just never know.
So, my friend, what's in the news on this June 13th / June 14th as time winds down in this day on continental North America?
Well, Dave, how many times have you gotten your head stuck in a car's tailpipe?
What? A car's tailpipe?
I asked that question correctly. How many times have you gotten your head stuck in a car's tailpipe?
My head has always been way too fat in order to get into a car tailpipe. How is that even possible?
You know, you're going to have to go search out the video because this weekend at the Woodstock Music Festival outside of, it's in Minnesota. I can't remember. It's the Woodstock Music Festival. A woman got her head stuck in a tailpipe and rescue workers had to be called. There's a video circulating of her having her head cut out of a tailpipe and her being escorted out and charged with underage drinking. But I don't know how you even get to the position of getting your head stuck in a tailpipe.
How big of a tailpipe? Was this like a dually truck that is, has one of those giant muffler tailpipes put on there? Because if it's if it's a Honda or something like that, there's no bloody way.
Well, a lot of them are sort of customized, and they do have those flaring end pieces where I guess if you were really, really determined, you could get your head in there. I'm not sure why you would want to try. I don't know, but I guess if you had something like that, it is possible.
Who does that, though? Who does that, though? Who thinks it's a good idea to shove their head in a tailpipe?
Apparently, people in Minnesota at music festivals.
Okay, I'm looking at a picture of this. This is definitely a pickup. All right, and it's got one of them enlarged tailpipes. And yeah, she's stuck in there. That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious.
How much beer does it take to make that a good idea?
There is not enough beer in this world to make that a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's funny. It's something to, make us all feel a little less dumb.
You know what the problem is? Eventually, it's people like that who will be, running this country. That generation. I finally went there. I think I'm finally old enough to go there and say that this generation is going to be, like, every generation has their weirdos and their strange ones. All right. But there is nothing interesting about doing this. Nothing interesting.
It's not something I would do. I would hope to think it's not something you would do.
No.
But
no.
It seemed like a good idea at the time for her.
I agree. I fully agree. And God bless her. I hope she's a straight-A student. I really do. But she definitely has to cut off the alcohol. Young lady, that is the key here. Cut off the drugs, cut off the alcohol. Just enjoy the music. Savor the moment.
Exactly.
All right.
So have you followed, or do you use emojis often?
I'm going to say no, okay? The odd time, I accidentally will put one on there. If you hit the LOL and then your thumb kind of slips on your iPhone and it hits the laughing out loud emoji face. I'm not an emoji guy. I really am not. It just doesn't suit me.
Well, then you might not relate to this, but Google has made a change to its salad emoji, and
are they getting rid of the eggplant?
Well, they're getting rid of the egg, and it actually sort of created a little bit of a Twitter debate over whether or not eggs were vegan or not, and a user experience manager for them for Google. Had an exchange with some different Twitter followers of hers on Twitter, where she tweeted about talk of inclusion of all people, taking maybe a cue from you Canadians, but she talked about removing the eggplant, now you put that in my head, removing the egg, and people started to debate whether or not eggs were vegan or not. And being an animal product, it is in fact not suitable for vegans.
I never thought I would hear a vegan story on this show. We are pro bacon here.
Bacon is great on a salad.
It really is. But there is nothing that bacon can do. But the egg emoji, are you serious? Are vegans actually griping about the egg emoji?
Well, they were griping about the egg in the salad emoji.
Really?
Yes. Because apparently egg does not belong in a salad for vegans.
Well, take it out. It doesn't have to be in there.
And Google,
this is what's wrong with our world. This is what's wrong with our world, that Google will actually take that out. Take that out for a special interest group. Seriously.
I see your point. I mean, I don't use emojis. I barely am capable of using my phone. But what if I want to send an emoji saying that I want a salad and I want egg in my salad? Now I have to add some sort of egg emoji because vegans don't want egg in their salad. But we're being inclusive.
My goodness. My goodness. It's like the restaurant in Toronto that serves wild game, okay? They got this restaurant. I don't know if you saw this a couple of months ago on the news. But there was this restaurant where the vegans were protesting in downtown Toronto. So the owner and the chef of the restaurant decided to carve up the leg of a deer right in front of the window where the vegans were going absolutely haywire. They were going haywire. And the vegans actually called the police on these guys, or on this restaurant. The cops went in there, and really there was nothing they could do. Nothing they could do. The I'm offended crowd just finding another excuse. This is what happens this is what happens, people, when you allow your children to play soccer.
Ooh.
Yeah, I went there.
Well, speaking of soccer, you know that Russian workers are being trained to smile to appear friendlier for the upcoming World Cup, FIFA World Cup events in a bunch of different Russian cities. They are actually requiring transit workers, train conductors, anybody that will be dealing with the potentially huge amount of tourism that is going to be coming into Russia, to attend training seminars to learn how to smile and appear friendlier to tourists.
I can see that because most Russian people look absolutely miserable. You know, they look like that they just got Whitleyd, something fierce, and they're not enjoying the after effects. Every Russian person looks like that. I don't know why.
Well, you know, there's a film director, I believe his name is Yulia Melaved. He told the BBC that smiling could get them basically questioned by Russian police. They were stopped by police officers one time and asked why they were smiling because the police officers believed something suspicious was going on.
Smiling will do it every time, man. Every time.
You know what? If I was in Russia, I don't know that I'd smile much either.
I don't know. I've heard it's not a bad place. Yeah,
but you're used to snow.
True. A lot of Russians have bad teeth, though. Over there. Not the Russians over here, but over there.
Let's not pick on their appearance.
Wait, I'm Ukrainian, man. They've invaded us enough.
And how do you know they have bad teeth if they're not smiling?
Well, that's probably why they don't smile, is because there's no dentists in the country.
I don't know. I think I wouldn't smile because I was in Russia.
Oh, that's not nice. Leave the poor Russians alone and their bad teeth and oral hygiene. Send them some dental floss. you know, where's Crest or Colgate or Aquafresh? Does anybody actually use Aquafresh anymore?
I think I have a tube of it in my guest bathroom.
What's it? How long's it been there? Like 89? Since 89?
I don't often have guests, so probably, 5-10 years.
Would you allow a guest to use that?
It would depend on if I wanted them here or not.
RJ in the chat room, brand new listener. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat room, RJ. He says, it's the Brits that got bad teeth. Yes, but the Russians are just as bad. You know, but they do create some good hockey players. You know, speaking of this sports disease called soccer, all right, a disappointing day for me when I find out that Canada, the United States, and Mexico got the 2026 World Cup. Disappointing day.
Yeah, I don't want those people.
That means my tax dollars are going to go to supporting soccer. Right? I don't like that.
But it does bring in tourism. does bring in a lot of
that's fine.
business to the bars.
Soccer creates hooliganism. When's the last time you saw a soccer game over in Europe without a brawl? The only reason why it isn't here is because we haven't figured that out yet.
I thought soccer was just an excuse to have a fight.
Well, it should be in the stands because Lord knows that the players are faking it on the field. And that disease is coming over to NHL hockey now. It's not even real hockey anymore. Just bugs me. Bugs me. Now you got me all fired up, Themer.
Okay, before we run out of time, I've got to talk to you about this.
All right.
Because in Surrey, British Columbia, Bill Hauser's area, there is apparently a feral herd of peacocks wandering the streets of several of the neighborhoods, just creating a ruckus in the town. And
good for them.
I can relate to this, but they're climbing in trees and they're pooping all over.
Excellent.
One guy, I guess, is now facing potentially up to $10,000 in fines because he got so frustrated with a peacock living in his tree or nesting in his tree that he cut down a tree without a permit.
Good for him. Good for him. Let me tell you about Surrey, British Columbia. All right. Surrey, British Columbia is giant. There's like 1 million people in that area, in that town, okay? It is massive. Surrey is massive. Not land-wise bigger than Vancouver, but pretty darn close. But Surrey is just one of those areas, it's like, how can we put this on human terms? It's like that ex-girlfriend that just will not stop calling, or that ex-boyfriend for the ladies, that just won't stop calling. That's what Surrey is. It nags you. All the problems around that person haunt you forever. That is Surrey. All the gang wars in British Columbia start in Surrey. All the shootings are in Surrey. It's ridiculous. And now they're complaining about peacocks? That's the least of Surrey's problems. Least of it.
I don't know. Have you heard a peacock?
Well, I heard your peacock. Oh, that didn't come out very well. That did not come out very well. You've got a peacock up in your tree. Is there any good way to say this? You have one of them damn birds in your yard. There we go.
Yeah, I do. And,
who named that? Who named it a peacock? Like, come on. Who? Like, why? Who's the guy?
I don't know. But the one thing I do know is that I can understand how these people kind of feel because they sound like a screaming woman in pain when they do their calls. And the problem is, at least around here, and I'm guessing that's the cause for contention up there, is that oftentimes they will begin their calls, in the late evening, and they will continue until sunrise. And it is this piercing, it's almost, if you've ever heard the descriptions or heard a banshee screaming, that's very much what it sounds like. And I know for a fact it can be very disturbing, especially when you're trying to go to sleep.
How long before the I'm offended crowd looks to change the name of the peacock? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I think it's safe.
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's coming, man. I think it's coming.
I think you're wrong there. I think that they'll just be left alone. What are you going to change it to?
I don't know, but I'm going to tweet it out. What about the feathered banshee?
What about the big, colorful, irritating bird?
Could be that. But the non-binary crowd is going to go crazy over the name peacock. You know what? We're going to trend that. Twitter crowd, I know you're on there at hashtag Spaced Out Radio listening, and we have to figure this out. Let's start a movement here. Let's start a movement of changing the name of peacocks out of political correctness. Let's do that. And in the meantime,
maybe I'll
go ahead.
Maybe I'll post to Twitter. I'll see if I can get a cell phone video of my peacock tonight. He should be starting any time now.
Yeah, if he starts during this show, you gotta put the phone outside so we could hear that bastard.
Hopefully he doesn't, and
All
hopefully
right.
it's soundproof enough here.
All right. Let's get to the thought of the Dave. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day we ask a question on Twitter and Facebook, which we call the Thought of the Dave, and we read your responses on the air. So today's Thought of the Dave is, tell me about the strangest paranormal experience you've ever had. Everett, let's start with you on this one. What's the strangest occurrence you've ever had? Was it last night? With the phones?
No, because that I like you and I talked about, it could be technological, it could be a variety of different things, and who knows, maybe there's just some algorithm that periodically cuts people off when they talk about things. My paranormal experiences have been so very mundane that I think I just kind of go back to the very first one that I ever had, where I saw this figure step out from behind a tree in the woods. And I later found out that down one property over, there was somebody who had committed suicide sitting in a truck in the woods at the time. And I think that's probably the strangest one.
All right, let's see what the audience has to say. Kat says it was in the late 2000s. Her daughter had been complaining almost her entire life that she was seeing strange lights in her bedroom. So one day she moved all the kids down into her room behind the door. And she says, I was going to have slept upstairs in the pitch black room. It was around 11:33 at night, and it is something that I will never forget. I sat on the corner of the bed, looked around, and as I got up to head to the archway that led out of the room, there was a dark shadow of a man wearing a mask that looked like he was some sort of tribal dragon, extended eyes, head shape. I was frozen, deadlocked into the gaze of this darkness. I couldn't move. Then it happened. It rushed me, went through me, and my brain just flipped out. I was screaming down the stairs as fast as I could. I was sitting on the couch, catching my breath and trying to wrap my head around what I just saw. I decided to check on my kids and the dog. They were all locked away in my room behind the door. Months later, I developed an unknown DVT under my right clavicle. The doctors could not explain why it was there. That is eerie. Eerie.
That is wild.
Rob jumps in and says, I've had so many, but one that comes to mind is music turning on full blast in the middle of the night at my old house. Maybe your dog liked to rock the Barry Manilow. That's what I'm wondering, Rob. That's what's got me wondering right now. Now,
but was it Barry Manilow?
We don't know. He was Copacabanaing, I guess. Who knows? All right, Gail, a ghost in a photo from the 108 Mile House ghost tour moved. I got to tell you this story with Gail, okay? This is so cool. So she went on our Facebook page, the 108 Mile Ghost Tours, because she was checking out the photos. And there's this one photo we have from the post house stairwell. Okay, it was taken outside at the window of it's a two-tiered stairwell. And there's a picture which looks like a guy kind of holding up his left hand, and then there's another guy peering out. Well, as Gail was looking at this picture, and Gail's pretty straight-laced, pretty skeptical about a lot of this stuff, well, these two ghosts apparently, allegedly, started moving in the photo. Strange, eh?
Yeah, she sent me that picture, and I looked at it for a long time, and I can see how, I've heard experiences like this where something in a picture will seem to move for somebody and not others, but I looked at that picture for a long time, And I will tell you, it is a very strange picture.
It is a strange picture. Go on the 108 Mile Ghost Tour Facebook page to see it. Terry jumps in. She says, I was at a 5-star hotel in Kentucky in 2012. Hubby and I were in a super king bed. I felt a hard smack on my back. I woke up, sat up straight, and looked at my hubby, thinking, he did it. He's facing the opposite way and snoring. I thought, WTF. Shook my head, tried to reach back to rub it because it stung real bad. Looked in the mirror and there was a huge handprint on the middle of my back. Woke up hubby to show him. He put his hand on it to measure the size, and it was twice the size of his hand. Damn spirits.
Wow.
Maggie jumps in. One that comes to mind the most was my St. Christopher necklace. The St. Chris medal kept coming off and ending up in places I had not been. The chain was not broken, nor was the bail. Then one night in a room with friends, it was slowly taken off the chain and pulled down my chest until it landed in my lap in front of everybody. They all saw it. I wore that necklace for around 30 years and never a day without it, as I don't want to lose it. A medium told me it was my mom doing it, so I have that great comfort that I knew it wasn't an evil spirit. Interesting. Sandra jumps in. My daughter and I were up watching ghost hunting shows, and after she got into bed, there was a loud noise, and she started screaming that someone came out of the closet and grabbed her ankles. She was around 15 at the time. She was scared. The next morning, I noticed the bruised finger marks on her ankles. It's like something said, I'll give you something to be scared of. Ooh, that one just gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's not fun when it involves kids and there's nothing you can do. That's for sure. Kevin. I will try and touch on the event that occurred a little over a month ago after my mother passed away in the downstairs hallway of her house. I witnessed an item take form and animate itself. It all involved one of those thin blue shopping bags and Macy, my mom's favorite cat. The whole event lasted 6 minutes. The vision of it in my mind will last much, much longer. P.S. I always thought this sort of thing would make me excited because of the particulars of the situation. I was pissed off. Milo. The house I lived in before this, I could get a sense of something peeking around the corner from the stairs to the basement. I never saw it directly, was always peripheral, like a movement caught my eye. I never mentioned it because I assumed it was a shadow from the opposite window. About 6 months after buying the house, the neighbor told me a guy lived there. A guy lived there 2 owners before was killed in a car crash. Then one day I was with my girlfriend when I sensed movement. I told her and she said, oh yeah, a guy peeks around the corner. She was so nonchalant about seeing him. Eerie. Eerie, eerie. Let's get to Linda's. For years I interpreted an experience I had regarding the landing of 3 saucers in a field behind our home as a dream. But now in my senior years, I've been shown that it indeed happened. Wow. 2 more for you guys. 2 more. Rich Giordano from the Paranormal Code. The short version. He gave me the War and Peace version, so I'm going to read the short version here. Orb light enters the bedroom to the closet. Richie is scared. His wife is too. Light dances a little, goes out the window, shows up the next day, rushes heads, tree is dead, end of story. And the final one of the night goes to Andrew. Seeing my own shadow run while I was walking and hearing, they can't reach you. Ooh, that one freaky. Wow. Everett Themer, thanks for coming on Spaced Out Radio with another great edition of The Encounter.
Thanks for having me.
We also want to say a big thank you to Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine for hopping in tonight. Jib Thomas was supposed to be our guest, but a very, very close death to him happened. And we gave him the night off. We're going to reschedule that. So Olav jumped on in, did a remarkable job once again. We're going to try and get Olav on again next month. We got some big stories to talk with him. Tomorrow night on the program, the legend, Stanton Friedman, joins us. Probably the last time you will hear Stanton on Spaced Out Radio as he talks retirement from the UFO research. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. And a big thank you to everybody watching on Periscope.tv. You were amazing tonight. Everyone on Spreaker was awesome as well. At hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Thanks for the fun times tonight. And the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. You were great as well. Thanks to everybody sharing the show, telling your friends, helping us get bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Good night.
This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you fall so